There we go. Excellent. And I have my screen share up. So good afternoon. Let us begin with a Green IT intro. Though, Kathy, I have been forewarned that you have been clicking around and actually doing things. So we'll be touching on intro concepts of global map, navigation, compliance, tasks, vitals, and maybe get in the weeds in a couple other areas like stakeholders and maybe into the calendar. That's a lot of material, so we'll do it at a fairly quick pace and understanding that you're already up and running. If we get into a content section that you've already mastered and have full comfort on, just feel free to say so, and then we'll just jump to the next concept. To that end, this is a technical training, and I say that, you can't see me, there was some air quotes there, because as much as I'm going to show you which buttons to click on, the technical, I'm also going to take the opportunity to introduce some of the core concepts, answer the question why. Why did we make a decision to design the software this way, or what does this mean for DESRI? So a button to click is good, but knowing why or what will happen and what impact that has elsewhere, I'm hopeful that through this session that we'll be able to give you context and just a deeper understanding of the Green IT GreenDesk system. But also just generally the DESRI portfolio.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I also do request if maybe, if we have some spare time at the end, we can talk about, how are the typical data source, and then, what are the method to, pull data, then what's the limitation? Because I've been kind of working with Matt to come up with some other ideas of how our dashboard should be look like, and then what are the other functions we want to build in it. So I think it's very good to understand just general, how do you route all the data into it, and then what are the servers you're running through. It just gives me some concept of the difficulties of getting certain data in. For example, if I actually want to load like an ISO LMP into it for certain analysis, and then to calculate and display a dashboard, is that something achievable?
Yeah, totally. Appreciate that, and loving the new ideas. LMP data can be quite extensive. However, Green IT is built on an elastic infrastructure. In fact, this is living up on Amazon Web Services and a slice of Amazon that DESRI is contracting. So this is on DESRI's cloud, so to speak. I think it's actually technically DE Shaw's cloud, but we place our software up there on a fairly extensive cluster of systems and services, and it's designed to handle the load of fully loaded platform of operational projects, as well as a highly dynamic portfolio or pipeline of development assets. So bringing in LMP data sounds good. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to best harvest that. Are we going to auto collect that? Are we going to take it in once? And then let's explore what you're trying to do with regards to math or any other automation that you're going to be interested in as well. The Green IT team is not just, we're not a set it and leave it kind of service provider. This is intended to be a software that is your system of truth or your system of record, but it's also your platform to scrape and exploit and extract value out of your data. And in that, we're your partner to help you achieve that. There are elements such as working with Matt, where you have some good maths and some good science behind what you're doing. In other cases, different team members here at DESRI may present a workflow or a problem, and then just generally ask us to solve it. So we're flexible and excited to work with technical team members and non-technical ones as well to help understand what you're looking for, build a good user story, and then either point you at the tool and or develop it for you. The relationship we have, again, is not set it and leave it. We're here. We operate in an agile environment where we are continuously updating the software, and we listen. We work with the asset management team We work with Clev, we work with Matt, we work with Connor extensively to manage this roadmap, and then continually implement and update the software. If you have ideas, we are listening, and we will attempt to work together to find the best solution. And there may be multiple options. There's, as I mentioned, pretty extensive cluster of services and systems. There's going to be a lot of different ways to solve a problem. Some may be advantageous for other functions or other features already in the software. Some may be somewhat of a dead end, and we'll just help you work all of that out loud, and be, again, your partner to deliver. All of that is all the good stuff. Let's start clicking into the software, though, where all this will make sense, and then we'll just pivot from there into the rest of the conversation. Cool. So GreenDesk is the name of the platform that DESRI has determined. In fact, it is the Green IT software. I think Yasharith was the lucky winner of the naming contest back in fall of 2000. It was fall of 19. I'm forgetting when that happened, but GreenDesk is the label of which the team refers to the Green IT software. It is one and the same, but this implementation is DESRI specific, as are all of our customers. Your data is your data, does not cross with anybody else. Your systems are your systems. Green IT is a technical administrator up here on the cloud. Our team and many folks on the line here today have an account in here. We are here to kind of click around and do some admin stuff for you. We're here to do some QA, but generally our objective is to stay out of your way and just support as needed. It is a web app. You're using a browser, Chrome, Firefox, and the most modern versions of them. I'm not talking about bleeding edge beta releases of the browser. These are just the current commercially available, the one that will auto download for you with Firefox and Chrome. Anything that starts with IE, Internet Explorer, and Green IT is expressly frowned upon. But otherwise, Edge is proven to be workable, though we are strongly going to advocate that you use Firefox or Chrome. The web app is built upon a role-based workspace, and every user, every DESRI team member that requires an account has both a contact type. In this case, they're going to have a contact role called internal, and then they're going to have a user role. And the user roles are imbued, built with certain rights and permissions that are configurable. So you may be clicking in there today and you can't see a certain module. You may see something on my screen through the demo today that you can't see on yours. And it's likely as a result of your user role not having a certain permission set. All that's very elastic. There's a panel on the back end that we adjust. And at this point, I think you're in as an asset manager, and that means that you are fairly well enabled across the platform. But a user like Connor is going to have admin features to a couple other sections. The Wall, Vipin, Manali, they all have a little bit more in terms of their level of access in the software, as was defined by the team and the committee that determined who should see what. But that said, the role-based workspace goes a little bit further than that, and I'll explain this concept of a team role in a moment. But upon login, the software will know who you are and will begin presenting information specific to you. There is an affiliate user concept, i.e. Ranger, and actually Ranger is your only implementation of that. But the affiliates are then subject to further restrictions and further controls. So you'll have the ability to custom make environments, should you determine it necessary, for your partners or other groups that you're working with. If you want to bring them into the platform, you can not only give them a user role, which will have some restrictions, but you can also apply an affiliate control, which is to say, you can only work in this project or with these modules in this project, and then subject to a user role for further restrictions. There's a lot of different ways to get in trouble, if you will, within the platform. There's a lot of data there. So as you are considering new team members, and I think we just received a request today to add some new team members, If you're considering levering access to those external in the organization, let's talk. There's a meeting that Connor facilitates on a weekly basis where we consider changes, and should we need to discuss any permissions and controls, that's going to be the venue to do it. So when you log in, it knows who you are. It's going to present information to you. And the first screen that you're going to interact with in Green IT is this, what's on screen right now. This is your global map. The global map is just going to show you portfolio information. These little dots are the various projects. There's different ways to click through them. Here's what's in construction. Here's the active stuffs in development. Those Bs represent BOTs. Those pluses are those with a blend of solar and storage. You can see a lot of activity happening here in the Midwest. I think a year or two ago, this was called out as that's where the portfolio is going, and the dots have followed. But the goal, of course, is to bring these projects online. And I'm clicking on the operational solar, and here the operational wind. Obviously, this project down here in the south here is a solar plus. But it's not solar plus storage. It's Red Horse. It's the solar with wind. It's an interesting combined facility. That said, the portfolio view is going to show you everything. I could click on an asset to see it. Here's gravel pit, and I can click in the gravel pit. But the map is one way of looking at this information. The other is, let me click on all resources. I'm going to click over here to grid. And this is, well, just that. It's a grid. It's the same information. The portfolio view here, the global map, is going to show you all of the projects and give you some tools to navigate. I can click show filter to go ahead and find a project. And I can filter this based on, I'm only interested in projects that are going to go PPA COD within the next 12 months or something like that. So I can build a query here to just find aspects of the portfolio. Here's here's a certain query for 10 months. Here is one way to approach it. I could also say, just show me all my solar projects, show me projects that Unkit Jane is associated to, show me projects in Colorado, and I can build some queries that might not return any results here, but it's from this filter view that I can slice up the portfolio. I could, just from the map view, of course, click on a pin here and see the asset. There's Hunter, Colorado. I doubt Unkit Jane was associated, so I might not have gotten there from my grid filter, but I can click and find my way across the map. The metrics at the top here, calculate in real time. There's 128 sites. You may look at your asset management list and say, no way, but keep in mind that we have parents and children sites. Huntington is actually 5 sites. LA County and some of those DG sites also follow a similar model. I think not Keystone, Buckeye has a lot of children and so on. So yeah, in fact, there are 128, including the development assets, all operating. We're down to 68, which again, I think you may think is a little heavy, but those children's sites are all counted individually. This dot here in black indicates that this plant is a third-party asset management. So this is the Mount Single 2 facility. And you may have Kawailoa Solar. I forget if that one's black. Where are we? There's KS2. Oh, but they're going to sit right on top of each other because they share the same POI. I believe that's what's happening there with Kawailoa. But all that said, here's the map. You can click on it. You can find your assets. Alternatively, use the portfolio nav in the top left, and then you can find your assets from here. A neat tip and trick, if I'm looking to find a project in quickly, I could just start typing. So let's say I'm interested in La Mesa. I just typed in L, and it takes me down to the L plants. Take a look. There's LA County. Here are my children. So the navigation works. It's trying to be smart. And I can just start type Midway, and there we go. I got to MI, and it's found these sites. All projects going to show just that, solar and wind, and then alternatively for the other categories as well, the solar, wind, and solar pluses, or I could break it out in the individual categories. Green IT has multiple layers of view. The portfolio view is not just the map. There are modules that are just high-level information. There are other modules which are going to be project specific, and within the there's going to be other views which are project specific. The project specific view is going to follow a module architecture where each project is going to have a LAN module, an interconnect module, a permitting module. In fact, all projects will have the same module structure, but then alternatively, there's other views in the software where you can look across from those views to see projects. So I'm interested in land for all projects, or I'm interested in interconnection. So the data itself most likely is going to reside at the project module level, but just because it's created there, it's stored in a relational database, and there's a variety of different tools that are going to help you pivot through that data to access what you're interested in, or what you need to hit for your job function. All that said, your data in here, Kathy, which you're inheriting today, has been pretty well scrubbed. Members of the team have kind of levered in their their local data stores, brought it into the platform, and it's been cleaned up. More cleanup to go, though. I don't think that job is ever done. I also think that the DESRI asset managers are always going to be busy. So it's going to be a long-term effort to always maintain or manage your data integrity. That said, let's go ahead and pick a project and start navigating. Solar, airport, and here we go. So we've left the portfolio view, and now we're in the project view. What you see at the top of your screen here, this horizontal navigation, project overview, development, interconnection, land. This is what I was referring to as the project modules. This horizontal navigation in 2 bars here will show us basically how to flip the channel within airport. So here I could click on and see interconnect for airport, or I could click over here to do offtake. If I switch projects, let's go take a look at, let's go into Alta Luna. It's going to look very much the same. It's going to say Alta Luna here, and I've got the same modules, but the coloring's different. I've got a red X in interconnection. I got a 20 and a red X in offtake. Those are indicative of there's obligations or things to do that are in those modules. So an asset manager is going to look at that and say, hey, I got 4 interconnection items, and the red is going to mean that I am overdue. So there is some action to be taken here. I didn't highlight it, but back on the main, on the global map, there is these KPIs. There are these KPIs in the top right, which indicate that we have 290 compliance items that are going to be due in the next 30 days. And there's a whopping 886 of these that are currently overdue. That is wrong. There are some items that the team needs to keep cleaning up. There's definitely a lot of payments that are being injected now that are going to be subject to a parallel payment test. So this number is highly inflated, but we're going to work with the team and advocate with Jesse and Cleb to put together a good engagement program for the asset managers and give you the tools, and then also the appropriate amount of time that it will take in order to get this down to 0. The goal is it's 0, or anything that's overdue is legitimately overdue. I'm going to get back into the project module. We'll keep coming back to this concept over and over of how to manage obligations in the software, but let's just head back into Alta Luna. So single click from the portfolio nav into Alta Luna, and I'm onto overview. Overview is going to start in the vitals tab. There's multiple tabs here, and I can click around. The vitals tab is going to be your first introduction into the data platform that Green IT delivers. A vital is just the data point, and you being DESRI, design what your data structure is across all projects. Now, these can be technology specific. You can have different vitals for solar, for wind. You can have different vitals for PJM and MISO. You could even have different vitals for like a ridge top wind site as opposed to a flat desert solar plant. You can skew your vitals however you'd like, but the vitals themselves are data that describe the project. So a vital can be a numeric input, a currency input, like how much did we invest in the interconnection deposit, or when is the COD milestone? That could be a date input. It could be alphanumeric and text. They could be team members. Here you're looking at the DESRI team roles. It's a very popular vital. Here's milestones on the left. But in each of the modules, take a look here in interconnect, I've got more vitals. They are everywhere. And on a screen later on, I'm going to show you how you can roll them up across the project and run reporting on it across the portfolio rather. So I could say, hey, show me all of my inverters for all projects in Texas. You can build queries like that from a single vantage point and run reporting across your portfolio. Some of these vitals have this little plus sign. This indicates that you could have two different pad mounts here. You could have two different inverters at the plant, and not quantity two, but you've got ABBs and another kind. You've got a variety of different modules here. Clicking the plus creates another string, not to use the very common term string inverter, but it creates another string of vitals. If I don't fill anything out, the next time we refresh the page, these are going to be gone. Editing a vital is simple. Just click in the field and edit. However, if we go back to overview, I can edit this one, but I can't edit this one. Some of them are locked, and you're not going to have permissions to edit all of them. These here are milestones. These are regulated. We don't want a lot of users changing them because they have impact. They mean something. When we change a vital for the yes, confirmed. There's some disconnect notice. I'm sure you've seen that, Connor. Wow. Yes. Anyway, sticking with what's ahead of me. Michael, you might want to connect on that with Glenn. I don't know if there's anything for us to do, but that seems to be a big deal. Anyway, I digress. The milestones themselves are going to trigger obligations elsewhere in the platform. So specifically, if I were to pop open the green gears here, which is going to float on all of the page, I can get to the compliance milestones manager. And it's from here that I can define the most important dates for the project. This list of milestones is somewhat of a hot topic for the team. It's been static or less dynamic in the last couple months. And it's sourced by, if there's an agreement in the DESRI platform, if there is a date that the team is using to track some element of development, construction, or operations, we're going to define that as a standard and then make that available for any project. And then we can pivot obligations or other payments or whatever there might be to be based on them. Not every milestone will be triggered for a project. Altaluna is not a NERC registered plant, so we're not going to have NERC registration date done. We may not know placed in service date. We may not know certain items here, but this would be the panel where we trigger it. I've recently seen a RACI developed by the team. I think Connor and Nawal had assembled this, and the RACI indicated that Yasharth will be the owner of this. In fact, an email just trickled in right now for those mid-stage projects. So thank you, Connor. That said, few users will manage this because by changing one of these dates, you can change a whole bunch of stuff. New payments can be calculated, or payment dates or compliance requirements can be changed. So less users will have an edit view here. More users are going to have a read view. Like most things in Green IT, there will be an updates log, so you can see who edited what and when. Here, I'm just scrolling a long list of those changes. Yasharth, and then a whole bunch of Green IT. We're happy for Yasharth to be taking over admin responsibilities here, but should you need us to make mods, Green IT is available. To open and close Green Gears, literally just click the Green Gears in order to open up, and that's how I am going to access the compliance milestones. What I'm going
Got a quick question with the milestone dates.
Yeah.
I actually came from a renewable IPP prior to joining DESRI, so we were actually we had internal tours of everything. The one thing I found very important, but kind of not already in the GreenDesk right now, are actually the expiration dates of especially O&M services, where I think those dates, I don't think they were in there. At least maybe I didn't see them. It's a good reminder for us to look at if we need to renegotiate a contract or we need to find another PPA. So there are certain okay, so it's there, but I guess not in the summary view. I guess maybe that's the only problem.
Yeah, it's not a milestone, it's a calc. That agreement has an effective date and a term, and we'll calc that expiration for you. And that's here in the agreement expirations.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's every agreement that you expose to Green IT, and you do that through the Matrix tool. We're going to get deep into compliance as we keep clicking. You kind of set them up as you recognize, hey, this agreement has obligations that we're really interested in. So the operator agreement, like that, those have been abstracted in the platform, and thus those likely could both have an effective date, a term, and as well as a definition of party. I think also is a light one, so we don't have a lot of good info here, but it's also good to know what agreements do we have with NovaSource that expire in the next year, or what do we hold with PG&E, across the fleet. Having the matrix, which is going to be the tool in compliance to help get all of this set up, having that configured is not only going to yield, how do I manage my obligations, but Kathy, as you just described it, how do I manage these contracts? And that's going to get even thornier on I know you're on the AM side, but any of the land agreements that have those quick turns for options or brief development periods, those expire quickly. And there we have another tracker. It's called the expiration tracker. You'll find it from features, land agreement expiration. I'll just pop it in a new tab here. But here's just gonna be a breakdown of expirations that are going to happen per project. And you can see number of days until they expire and so on. So it's, oh, wow, we got 30 days for these here. So you'll know where you have to take action and when.
Okay, that's great. Glad you showed me the feature. I didn't go into that module specifically.
Awesome. Yep, and you're going to find that from the green gears. In the project, you'll see this little green thing. Once you mouse over it, it'll expand. Here's a calendar. Oops, what am I doing here? Get out of there. Here's a calendar. Calendar view, schedule view, just, here's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to get done. Here's the file view. This is Ignite. There's a bidirectional API between the platforms, which is going to show you, well, this is what's in Ignite. This is what's in Green IT. I can access the same files. There's the milestone view. Here's the team roles, just another view of who's on the team. Alternatively, there's also a stakeholder view, good for asset managers. I was going to do this at the end, so I'll come back for that. Your expirations are here. There's also a checkout of who has compliance for the project and a bit of like a resource chart for who has responsibilities, and a whole bunch more. I'm going to close this and keep moving. Let's head over into compliance though. Let's go into
sorry, there's one more quick question. So I was also like navigating through like the bar charts with like different owners, like how many of them were completed, right? That was maybe thinking, is there a way we can like display the obligation, like compliance status by the agreement group? So, for example, how many do I have left on, PPA and then versus, land versus interconnect? I don't know. I mean, to me, that's kind of more important than the actual owner of the compliance items.
Yeah, so I have this many obligations which are upcoming, this many complete, but a breakdown by type.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That a pie chart I think would be good for, well, a pie or a bar would be good for that. That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, because for example, I think this is very useful, especially for the DESRI organization, because you probably are aware that the asset management team, we handles many kind of communication and the management items, but essentially there are other people who's actually fulfilling the obligations. So it makes our life easier if we just need to kind of go ahead and then check everything on a certain agreements and then making sure everything's done. Or if we pay attention to, there's a lot of like finance obligation wasn't done, maybe we need to talk to the deal team. So it's kind of a good indication of who we should talk to, especially when I come in here as new. That's like really helpful to kind of navigate through the many overdues. Yep.
Breakdown by category. Total is good, but yeah, get into the weeds. Good. Thank you, Kathy. You're gonna have lots of good ideas. That was I think Connor had prepped me for that. So yeah, just keep them flowing. And even after this call, just email me. We can hop on calls. Thank you.
Yeah, but just let me know if you don't think that makes sense. I think I mostly came from that I had involvement in developing internal tools at my last company. So both the performance and the compliance, so actually worked in both performance and asset management for about 5 years in the IPP. And then all the tour data, like all the data tour we had was all internal.
Nice. Yeah.
So I had some experience designing the tours and then, making it more user friendly, changing it based on the demand.
Making a note. Kathy is dangerous. Got it.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's great. Welcome the conversation, and I think there's room at DESRI for that for sure. I think DESRI is welcoming good ideas to help manage this. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, closing this because I want to get us into compliance. I'm in interconnection for Alta, so here we go. I'm going to click to add one. I think it's easiest to tell the story of compliance from a new form, and then we'll look at the big table of what is compliance. Mind you, I'm in interconnect, I'm in Alta, but I'm going to click add new here. Not every user can add new. I think asset managers can, so I'm pretty sure you're going to have that right. But you may look over a colleague's desk in a post-pandemic world and see that, hey, they don't have that button. Maybe that's by design, maybe they're new to the team and their right needs to be adjusted. But regardless, I click new and here we go. We call this a light box. You'll see it's a little screened back. There's this thing floating in the middle. It's kind of a layer on top of the compliance table. We call these light boxes, and these are going to be pretty common across Green IT. First thing I'm going to do is define a group. In this case, there's a GIA because the group has already been created. There is a GIA group. You might have other interconnection groups that you're going to have to assemble here. You're going to have other relationships that you're going to want to create. And I'll show you how to create that in the matrix. But now there's an existing one, so I'll pick it. Also going to pick the file because we know we already have a relationship to the GIA, to this file name. I can download it. This is coming from Ignite. This file is available in the system, and that was created when the team abstracted it. Now I'm going to do an assignee. I'm going to assign it to you. You are in here. There you go, Kathy. I'm going to indicate that it's contractual obligation. You could say no, not all compliance is contractual. In fact, for NERC items, they're standards. They're not contractual, but they're equally important to fulfill. Verified obligation indicates, are you doing this or is the counterparty doing it for you? So we fulfill a report, they send a payment. We might want to know to check that as an obligation. So that would be obligation equal yes. The default is no. Usually the model for DESRI to date is stuff they need to do for others. Budget, I'll say yay or nay. I'll say nay. Payment, I can build that in. I'll just leave it blank right now. Responsible party, DESRI is the responsible party. If it was First Solar or NovaSource or whoever it is, you can select contractor. But right now, I'm just going to click DESRI and then save it next. Okay, next up here. Now we're gonna get into the schedule required. Here we go. Due when, and this is going to be based on those milestones. So I want it based on a project milestone, something that we know is going to happen. It might be very specifically stated in the agreement upon interconnection COD or upon the FNTP, whatever it might be. I can pick from milestones here, or alternatively, I can pick from the very bottom. I've got arbitrary date, and then we have effective date at the top. Effective date will be based on the effective date of the agreement. I have an offset here, so if it's 30 days from the effective date, and now we're into the recurrence, so cool, when does it recur? This is going to be annually, milestone anniversary, so meaning on the 30 days after, 30 days annually, 30 days after the anniversary of the effective date. Alternatively, if I were just to select annual, it would happen 30 days after effective date, and then next year it would recur on Jan 1 plus 30 days. So the difference here is going to be, do we pivot on the milestone anniversary or do we pivot on just the calendar? Pretty simple. We're going 1 to 10 here, annual to decennial. But there's a couple different flavors of triannual. There's a biannual, that one's simple, and then quarterly as well. So we break down pretty far. We do not advocate, nor should you ever do a daily requirement. It's here though, if you need it. We'd be happy to talk and truly determine, is this something that is a contractual compliance item? What does that represent? In this case, I'm going to just pick annual milestone anniversary, fairly popular, and that's going to now display a couple configurations that we can apply to that. The first is recurrence recalculate. It's a funky one. So if it's due on March 10th, and then each year thereafter on March 10th, if we fulfilled it on March 5th, next year it'll be due on March 5th. If the following year you do it on Feb 25th, the following year it'll be due on Feb 25th. Recurrence recalculate is fairly uncommon, but if you find yourself in a contractual obligation in that regard, often it happens, it's more often it happens for regulatory items. That's what recurrence recalculate will offer. And then repeat all will be that it's going to be for all periods of the term as defined in the interconnection agreement. Interconnection agreement has an effective date and a 30-year term. So for those 30 years, this thing's going to recur. Or if it's not 30 years, it's not repeat all, you can just put in the number of recurrences right here. And I could put a bookend on it as well, which would be the milestone end. I'm going to click Save and Next. And now I'm going to define my item. This is in section 12.1 of the agreement. The description is the thing that I have to do. And then there's other features here for configuring it. In fact, let me go back into it right now. We'll look at delivery. So who are we delivering it to? SCE. Hey, they're already in the system. I can pick them. And we're going to do this by telephone and web client, and click Save and Close. I've got an item, it's draft. This is not actionable. It only becomes actionable when we mark it active. Once it becomes active, we're going to calculate it in a way. We're going to look at how many recurrences and the milestones and all that other good stuff and figure out when this will actually happen. This is a parent. It may result in many children, and those children are all independent, though have lineage to the parent. So we know that this item, which is going to recur annually for the next 30 years, we know that each of them are connected in a sequence, yet you need to fulfill each of them as they have a due date, there's an assignee, and there's a recipient, there's something to do, and so on. That's compliance. I'm going to delete this one because I don't want to actually create this in your system. Click on interconnection again, pull up the list, and we're back to, not my deleted item, but here's the running log. Red ones indicate here that they're overdue. Overdue ones, we can turn them on to send everybody a nice daily email saying, hey, you have to do something, Oliver. In fact, you have 4 somethings to do, and you got a bunch coming up in the next 60 days as well, or a couple coming up. There is an email alert system that is ready to go. Right now, it's disabled for asset managers. As they need to just get that overdue count down a bit lower. That's compliance data. The big table, it's horizontal, so use your scroll on your trackpad. I'm just doing 2-finger scroll to look at the whole thing. I can export it here. Let me get this whole table out of here, or click on Show Filter too. Well, build a filter. I'm interested in everybody on the team and their responsibilities if their name has an A in it, or I'm interested in active items that are scheduled that are going to be due in the next, I don't know, from June 25 to July 2nd. I can build queries like this directly from the filter and click Submit. This one will not return anything as it's totally nonsensical. And if I wanted to clear it out, I can click Clear. If I run it, it'll say, hey, I found nothing, and I can clear the filter just by clicking Clear Filter. Here I am in Interconnect. If I moved over to Overview and then click Compliance from here, I'm going to see the compliance from finance, from offtake. There's some interconnection in here. Everything's in here. The overview will show me everything for Alta Luna in terms of their obligations. They're also on the calendar, and here's everything that it needs to be done. And alternatively, if I go to Features, Asset Management, Compliance Manager, from here, I'm going to be able to see all compliance in the system. By default, there's nothing in the filter. So build a filter. I'm interested in all of my A projects, active items, scheduled and non-scheduled, that are going to be due between June 1 and 10/01/2021. So here we go. This should catch something. Building a big query, and it found 67 items. I love this list. I really want to study it. I'm going to click export and I'm good. I love this list and I want to do something about it. This one I want to mark complete. I can mark it complete from here from the lightbox. I can mark it complete from here. And when I do this, it's going to prompt me to put in a completed date. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to mark it complete, but it's my obligation to, I can't just say it's done. I need to say when it was done. Click cancel because I don't want to do that. I'm going to click back into the compliance item, go to the next to last tab, comments, and in here I can add my note, click save. I'm now added a note to this item or to all of the items. Add this note to all. No, let's not do that. I really like my note, but I want to edit it. Just click the pencil icon and now I'm editing. Oops. Let me get back in there. And if I want to delete it, sorry, I could also just click it itself and I can edit it and I can click the trash can in order to get rid of it. Boom, it's gone. So compliance available everywhere. How did all this data get in here? Conceptually, this is something you're probably familiar with from your work at the previous IPP. Kathy, the Green IT abstraction team, along with DESRI Legal, has read the bulk of the critical or core project agreements for the operating fleet. So finance, tax, interconnection, offtake, land, permitting. I don't think there's much in terms of permitting in here, but that's definitely on the radar. There's some decom as well, but that's also on the radar to be expanded. And to see the full list of agreement types which are in here, just scroll the list. These are the agreement types that have been injected in the system. It's a pretty long list of stuff that's available in the platform. And those obligations were abstracted, QA'd, and then injected into the software. We call that process the abstract. There's templates built into the system, which will show you how to kind of build one of your own in Excel. And then the Green IT team is available for both QA and QC. And there's a number of those team members on the line today. And when and if you get there in terms of that being part of your job scope, we'll connect you with those team members, do some training, show you how the template works, and so on.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one thing we may schedule a different time to discuss, because like I was looking at my project obligations, like I already have, some questions on why some of the obligation was, left out of the tracker. I'm sure there was a specific criteria on how we decided to, enter certain obligations. But for example, the PPA obligation at Balco, it was only the annual report delivery to our off-taker, but there was a few other quite important obligation. It just wasn't captured. So I think one important thing is there are a lot of event triggered obligation. Maybe there was a decision made to leave them out, but it's actually very important to have those in mind, because we need to, take an action if something happens. So maybe that's something we can talk further. And there were also some other deliverables. It was basically missed. So I don't want to just say, there was, something not being checked. Maybe each of the asset manager just have to do a due diligence and then double check the project obligation when they get on to work on the projects.
Love to look at that with you. I think one thing that you're going to find is that DESRI was very consistent with the style that they chose, and that drew a line and said some items are important, some items are not. And that is not to say that list was complete or perfect. There was a decision that was made to grab what they did, but it's possible, Kathy, that you're going to make a very convincing argument that DESRI Legal is going to say, you're right, we need it. And let's go, hey, asset managers, go find this type of obligation and get it into the system, get a scheduler set up. That's happened on more than one occasion so far with the data that's in there. So what I have observed is, the team took a position with regards to a style, but has already made a couple adaptations as others have made compelling arguments similarly. So I think you'll find an open ear internally at DESRI, as I'm sure that you've seen. The winning argument is this is risk. This is something we need to watch out for. And that's definitely going to get the team's attention, and we'll get you the support to get that applied across the platform.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe I'll just schedule a different time with somebody who was involved in the decision-making process, because I run into a lot of issues on, like, I'm looking at two sides of obligations, and some, like, for example, the Nova Source O&M contract, it wasn't even like entered for some reason, and then there was missing obligations, which are, in fact, very important. So, I like, just, sorry, being honest, like, honest feedback is I can't really trust the obligation tracker at the stage right now, because I would, if I'm not reading through the contract, only going through the obligation tracker, I would be missing, quite key items to keep in mind.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I think you're going to get a lot of support internally on that. Your attention to that will be welcomed on the team. And there's definitely a gap, if you will, with regards to feeding the system. Why is that contract not in the system? You'll probably find a bit of that, and that's going to, I think, it's a bit of a cultural response internally, and just establishing the appropriate procedures to go from point of execution. We've signed this to getting the obligations inserted into the system for management. So I think there's a couple of pieces at play, and I'm happy to join that conversation and support. Also, Catherine Mignetti on the line here today as the lead of, and has been with the DESRI project since, I think, pretty much the beginning. I think Catherine's going to have a ton of perspective. And then ultimately, Clevenger will be an important team member, but there's been a number of legal team members who have supported as well. Tomo's been involved, but there's a bit of a rotational legal support. So there was the preferences of Dove, followed by the preferences of Ben, and I'm not even sure who the new legal resource is. Daniel. So there's you'll see some of that play out. Thank you, Catherine. You'll see some of that play out as well in the data. But for having a strong AM voice who's going to be able to say, like, this is how it needs to be done, I think the organization is really going to benefit from that.
Okay, yeah, I really want to respect, all the decisions, all the effort of the whole team. So I think I'm still kind of trying to find the best channel to discuss some of my concerns as I'm, reading through contracts these few weeks since I started. It's kind of like the moment to, make it right, or, make it better, just in terms of, I think this is going to probably just sink if I'm not freshly reading contracts one day. Like, I'll be just kind of getting used to what's already there. But on the compliance, there was another thing I was gonna bring up is so for all the child compliance items under, so basically the duplicated compliance items, but with different deadlines, for example, monthly, quarterly, yearly. I mean, do you think it would make sense to do like a drop-down menu, but don't list them repeatedly in the table? Because when I started, I was like looking through it, and then the form, I think there's almost too many information in the view that you're looking at, so there's too many columns, and then I guess some of them may not really be necessary. And then, like, I'd rather have the obligation folded. For example, the progress report of Big River, if I close the deadline for this month, my next deadline comes up right after that. So it's basically displaying the most recent deadline instead of all the deadlines and then repeat 12 times a year.
Yeah, so what you're describing there is just a UI or a visual
yeah, it's mostly visual. Yeah,
and it's I think Connor would be your best place to start there, and I can support you in that conversation. I don't think anybody's going to say no, they love it one way or another. So if you have a strong argument, again, what I've observed with the DESRI team is if you have a strong argument, it's going to be listened to. Connor kind of chairs or is the responsible party for managing the roadmap. And should you have that request, I think he'll run it up to Clev, but it's they will listen. So is there any reason why not to do that? No, I think it's just visual and it's preference. And if you have a strong argument for, and I think one of your, a little bit of counsel here, one of the I think a very compelling argument will be the team is very jammed, and I'm sure you're observing that already. The AM team is loaded and has been loaded for a long time. So if your argument is we'll make things easier for an asset manager, that's going to get a lot of support internally at DESRI.
Yeah, what I feel is everybody's too busy to look at compliance right now, because I did bring up this topic to one of our internal meetings, and then it just basically there really wasn't anyone who's actively working in the compliance tour right now, unfortunately. So it was like not really kind of bringing a good conversation or just an effective communication, because no one's been looking at it.
Yep, I think Clev is aware. I think he's given a bit of a grace period as the resources have been thin. But Kathy, you represent a response to those thin resources, and I believe there's other colleagues coming, if not already on board, that are going to respond to that as well. Prior to the resource gap or the thinning of resources that the team has experienced due to all this growth, there was a push to have an engagement and actually enforce the daily alerts for overdue items, and basically bring to the asset manager the responsibility. Hey, you need to watch your compliance. That was tabled 3-4 months ago, and your arrival, I think, is in direct is contributing to getting the team to a place to having a good mix of bandwidth, having a better handle on their their day-to-day and their ability to maintain the system.
Yeah, and another quick comment on the compliance. So I also wonder, for example, I'm doing the investor monthly report. It's usually under like the group finance and to the tax equity investors. So for example, I'm definitely going to do it every month, right? So is it possible to actually just create a checkbox in that particular obligation and say, oh, this is exempt for fulfillment because this is on my radar, like every month I do it? Or for example, if the land teams that are sending the payments to landowners, they're doing it as a monthly reoccurring activity, and then they can properly just say, oh, we don't have to come in every month to click say we completed this item. So I don't know if it's good to have that function to just overwrite some of the items.
I'll give you a no and a yes. So yes, payments, because there is a automated integration with Workday that will be going live this summer, which will not eliminate the need for tracking an item's status, but it will automatically close the payment as it's paid in Workday. So that's the yes portion of this. It's yes in that you will save yourself the click, because confirmation and validation in an alternate system, the ERP, will give you the closing of that item. Now for the report that's due, that's already on your radar, it's still due. And I would argue from a system of accountability that you'd want to maintain that it's due, and it's still incumbent upon the individual to fulfill it. If there's a means to automatically determine that it has been fulfilled, let's go for it. But from an organization standpoint, I would argue that we must get it done means that there's no snoozing. It needs to get done, and a user should spend the half second to click in and see what items are associated to them, click on my compliance, or just click on what's overdue and find their item and mark it done. The amount of time that takes is marginal, and it is I think useful from a system of accountability to maybe it is laborious there, but the upshot is the supervisory level of the software will have awareness if an item has slipped.
Yeah, understood. I think I share the concern with you as well. If we just overwrite the the fulfillments, but sometimes it's also a balance of how easy to use the tool, and then how much items are inside. And I think like at my last company, we had the same debate when we were creating this tour, but the decision was to actually kind of overwrite the monthly fulfillments, because every month you do it, you won't forget it. But for quarterly or yearly, we had kept everything as something you have to click and complete. So that was kind of the trade-off of not having everybody just look at a huge list, right? So it's a smaller list, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would argue with the team's behavior in terms of fulfillment thus far, decreasing the list wouldn't yield more clicking. It would just be less things for them not to click. Kathy, I welcome the conversation. I look forward to debating this with you. I think it's a cultural thing. I think the organization needs to determine their approach to risk management, and then the tools follow. As you described, removing the monthly items or having them not send overdue notices, technically all that's feasible. I think the larger conversation at the risk management level, with Cleve and others, I think is key for figuring out how to get there.
Yeah, I fully understand that. Personally, I don't mind clicking through them. I'm actually I'm pretty actively looking at my obligations, just as my personal habit, but I know it's not always the case for everybody. So I think just kind of finding the best way for us to use the tool, it's better than let the tool just sitting and then nobody's working on it. So yep. I want to respect the time, so I can go a little longer, but I'm not sure if your availability is allowed.
Yeah, I think I am 3 minutes late for my next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about being late and then and asking a lot of questions.
No, welcome the questions, welcome the conversation. We Kathy, we have work to do together, and so I really I think your experience, your position. So I'm excited about your experience. I'm also excited to see that more AMs are coming on board, and you have this attention to risk management. So it's myself and there's gonna be several team members here are going to look forward to partnering with you to make sure that this is getting rolled out and that DESRI is best handling their compliance. Now we're just doing compliance here. We looked at vitals. There's still tasks. There's data analytics. There's a heck of a lot more for us to go through. But let's organize a follow-on session so to continue that conversation. And then we could talk to Connor about getting some roadmap sessions with you. In addition to the walkthroughs, some roadmap, because you got some ideas, and let's get them going.
Yeah, that's great. And then let's maybe do use the next session for some of the performance data discussion too, because I think Jesse is gonna let me kind of support Matt on some of the performance, especially I have more background on the wind side.
Good. He's gonna welcome that.
Yeah, I've been in constant kind of brainstorming session with him already, so we'll kind of get the ideas more mature, then we'll bring it up.
Nice, great. I'm going to click off the recording now. I think that did it. Maybe it didn't stop recording. Boom.